Yeah, that's what he's doing.
But
Yeah, just don't video because we got a minor in here and his dad's not here, so if you don't mind. Or if you did, I'll just say this, if you did, please absolutely make sure that he's not in there.
Yep.
Okay? If somehow or another I ask what his name is and he tells me his name out loud, just erase it or something. Okay? But I'll probably name that. But as an introduction, because we're 30 minutes late, and for those who know, no, I'm not going to say that. My name is Malik Lay. I am the rear end half of Watson Lay Law and Education Services Group, which is the law firm that I am the executive or co-executive managing director of. That young lady in the back there with her coffee trying to stay away from everybody so she doesn't give you her Ebola is Danielle Watson. She's the front half of the Watson Lay Law Firm, okay? Now, we are both practicing actual attorney folks, okay? We don't act like attorneys for the most part because we don't like attorneys generally, okay? That individual back there in the shiny outfit, that is Captain Kevin Martin, okay, of the Vero Beach Police Department, right? So if you ever go to Vero Beach and you act up, he's probably not going to arrest you himself because he's got better things to do, but at some point he will learn who you are and make sure that you get that cell with all of the rats that have her Ebola. Okay? They're pre-Ebola. So here in a few minutes I'm gonna have him come up here and talk a couple things about felonies, misdemeanors, what his actual job in life and its component here in this country in law, legal, and all the other fun stuff. Okay? Then we've got this gentleman right here. Okay, the man, the legend, Mr. Michael Marsh. Okay, Michael Marsh is, well, we were down at Publix and we bought a bunch of donuts and we picked him up. He asked if they were vegan and we said yes, so he came with us. But he is going to talk about some of the things that he does, namely in the area of First Amendment stuff and knowing local and state, maybe even a little bit of federal laws and stuff like that. And turn that off. All right. Do us all a favor and cut your ringers off. I don't mind cutting your vibrator on your phone. keep that sentence going. Okay. But yeah, just cut your ringer off if you don't mind. Or if you accidentally do it, don't look at who's calling first before you cut the ringer off. Just cut the ringer off and then look at it. People forget that. Now, a couple of things that we are going to talk about because we are down 2 hours. So we'll have a whole lot more interaction-y type stuff. And I'm going to play this little video about freedom of speech because of all of the amendments, unless you were from like out in Loxahatchee or Okeechobee or Ocala or something like that, your favorite amendment is probably the 2nd or the 10th. But we're going to talk about freedom of speech things, and then we're going to talk about a whole bunch of other stuff, okay? We're going to try to clear up a couple of misconceptions of things that you guys all thought that you knew. I'm going to try to wow you on my impressive knowledge of a bunch of things that you could really care less about. Because if you got a donut in front of you, trust me, I wouldn't care about anything either. I'm staring right at you too, okay? So I have like this little thing right here. I'm gonna try to stick to it. I'm horrible at that, but I'm gonna try to. We are going to talk about a couple of things from the United States Constitution. What people don't really realize is almost every single thing that we do in life has a legal component to it in some form or fashion, okay? The fact that you were able to wake up, the fact that you were able to come here, looking out into the crowd, we have a very diverse group. The fact that you were able to even assemble together in one room, one building, at an institution, an educational institution, and still being there, okay? Getting a driver's license. Some places you can't get a driver's license, or you have to be a certain age. Driving sucks. Don't do it, okay? Get a bicycle or a skateboard or something like that, okay? But understand this, as long as the roadway is at least 14 feet from the middle, you have the right of way. Is that correct? ride my bike, so I try to make sure, because I'm a big dude, if I get run over and I live, like, bruh, it's 12.5 feet, I had the right of way. Okay, now we're going to talk about different practice areas of law really, really quickly because that stuff sucks. Okay, we're going to talk about criminal law, civil law, the differences. We're going to talk about felonies and misdemeanors. Might even ask this guy what his score was on his last field target practice thingy. How often do you guys have to do those?
We do it biannual, or not biannual, I'm sorry, twice a year. And then we do youth sports training once a year.
Do you have like tournaments and stuff like that too?
No.
You don't do that?
No.
You guys should.
We used to do Top Gun, and we haven't done that in a while.
Were you Maverick or Goose?
I would definitely do that.
Really? I'm Iceman. I go alone. That's right. Even my, what's the guy in the back? The guy in the back?
Guy in the back.
The guy riding shotgun. What's his name? Who was that? You're about my age. I'm young, so I don't know if you take offense to that. Okay. I don't want to say that. I say it all the time. It almost came out to
I
me.
just don't watch TV. So.
It's a movie. Came out in May of 1985. Top Gun.
Did they write a book?
Really?
Yeah.
What's the guy in the back seat? What's his name?
I can find out.
Not his name, but I mean, like, what is that? The guy riding shotgun. There's only 2 people.
We give up when we
Okay. Then, what I'm going to do also is I am going to ask a couple of questions. Then I want you guys to ask me a bunch of questions. Not so much to try to stump me, because that's not hard. Okay? But the biggest thing that I want to know, and this is kind of why we wanted to have the good captain back there, okay, was many of you guys operate under the assumptions that you have this right or you have that right. Or some people always say, well, this is the law that I can blah, 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 blah. And then this guy is usually laughing on the other side of those bars saying, yeah, you should probably go to law school or maybe even history class. That might even help you out. Okay, so I want you guys to ask me some of those things. But one of the first things we're going to talk about when we start talking about the specifics is the First Amendment. Okay, now, right out of the chute, how many amendments are there to the United States Constitution? In fact, let me even back it before that. What is the United States Constitution? Yes, I'm staring right at you. Eyes have not left, like just me and you.
It was the second document written to try and unite the states after the Revolutionary War. It initially had 10 amendments added on called the Bill of Rights to help with the compromise between the different states who everybody wanted a different thing. And it has general guidelines for the governing of the nation at that time and also how you should kind of proceed to amend it in the future.
Okay. General guidelines, I guess that's subjective. They were the guidelines. That's just what it is. Okay. Technically, there was no process to amend it. They just did. But that's Magna Charta was the same way. You could just add stuff to it. Okay. But she is absolutely kind of correct. It wasn't really the second, because you're talking about the Articles of Confederation was the first, right? Right, there were some that were before that, there were some that were in the middle, but none of them really matter because we only operate off of one, right? But for the most part, the U.S. Constitution is the basis of all laws that we operate from here in the United States, right? Period. Federal government. It applies to the federal government first and foremost. And as she just said, it is correct. It started off with just 10 amendments, okay? Which are the Bill of Rights, okay? And when you say the Bill of Rights, those are more specific to people, okay? People. Actually, I take that back. The first 9 are applied to people, okay? Not 10. The first 9 are applied to people. The 10th applies to the states, okay? It's federalism. Now, who knows what the First Amendment is? Yes, sir. I teach. I taught in high school. I was in the news last year because of that. But I teach in high school.
It grants freedom of speech, religion, press, petition, and assembly.
Okay, freedom of speech, press, petition, assembly, religion, What was the other one you said? Huh.
That was it.
Yeah, you said 6.
Speech, press, religion, assembly, petition.
Okay, I thought you said 6. All right. Speech, what does that mean? Because this is the one that jacks everybody up. What does freedom of speech mean? That's why he's laughing.
Me?
Yeah, it's still your show, brother.
I know it's not, you can say whatever you want, like there's large exceptions. It's more of, goodness. It's more of like to give, I guess, give you a voice in things.
I was born with the voice box. That's how I got my voice. I tend to think it's relatively sexy, but it's subjective. You know what the first, you know what freedom, okay, I'll say it for just a second. You know what freedom of speech is? What does that mean? Bueller. Bueller. You know what it means? Freedom of speech? Okay. So that's why I'm here, man. So I came to see you. You come see me. All right, what is freedom of speech? Mr. Marsh?
That there's certain protected speeches that we have freedoms with.
There are certain protected speeches that you have freedoms from.
But basically, doesn't allow you to say anything and everything, but there's certain protected speeches that we're afforded to the first, because of the First Amendment.
Does everybody agree with that?
No,
You don't agree with that?
I believe it's free speech.
Free speech?
All
It's,
speech?
Actually, yes. You can even have, you have the freedom to burn the flag. You have the freedom to say things against the government. That's why they made the First Amendment, is because so we have the right to say things against the government.
But all things?
Actually, I say yes.
We don't have the.
Okay, but hold on. But we're backing up a little bit. Back up. We're going forward. You're trying to cheat a little bit. Okay? I wish we had like the little things from around the horn.
You just press
Yeah. Right? But all right, so let me ask this then: is the freedom of speech? Okay, let me back up, because I did my kids, and you guys are my kids. You either have a right to do something or you don't. Correct?
Correct.
So if it's called a right, you either have it or you do not, for the most part, right? So that means that it's absolute. You absolutely have it or you absolutely do not have it, right? Now, with that being said, would you agree that you have the absolute right in this country to say or speak and say anything?
No.
Okay? Give me an example of when you do.
When you can?
Mhm. Not when you have the right, but when you can say whatever you want, for the most part.
As long as it's not hate speech.
But give me a time when you can. Yes,
During the Vietnam War, people would wear black armbands.
that is true. Tinker versus Des Moines. Okay? In school. Okay? But I'm talking about verbal. Okay? When can you say stuff?
In my house.
In your house.
I can say whatever I want.
So we can all, whenever we all want to say something, we can go to her house. Okay? We can say whatever we want to.
You asked for an example, you didn't.
That is a perfect example. That's why we're all going to your house. Okay? Yes, you can only say whatever you want to at home. Now, she can say what she wants at her house. Right? She is granted absolute freedom. Now, if I go over to her house, what happens? I can say whatever I want to, right? Right? Nope.
Her regulations.
Okay, but when you talk about a right, you're talking about a freedom to do whatever, okay? And a freedom is absent what? A penalty, right? So when you talk about rights, you're talking about doing whatever, absent some kind of a kick to the behind, right? So, if I go over to her house and she says, listen, I operate off of no sleep and sweet cream coffee creamer from Dunkin' Donuts. And if you don't have those things, you can't say anything in my house. Right? Does that sound about right? Pretty close?
Sounds about right.
Okay. So, That means that my penalty is, if I don't come with those things, I don't get to say anything or say what I want. But she can say whatever she wants to. She can say all kinds of stuff to me, and if I try to say something back, she throws me out.
You understand the rules of my house?
I do. I've been stalking her for a little while. I mean, I know a guy that's been stalking her for a while.
Familiar.
Huh?
I thought you seemed familiar.
No, because I wear makeup. Okay. Tomorrow, especially Sundays. Okay? So it's not absolute. Now, if I go over to Marsh's house and I say whatever I want to, Marsh either has a decision to say, in fact, even if Marsh lets me, that still doesn't, Marsh owns my right in his house. I don't have that right. Now, if I go over to the police station, in fact, not if I go to the police station, if I go and stand in front of a police station, okay,
You've done that.
and I yell and scream and do all kinds of crazy nonsense, for the most part, as long as I'm not in everybody's way or blocking traffic, because everybody has freedom of movement, all the other stuff, and I'm not threatening anybody, and I can even call him a pig if I want to and talk about him eating donuts and all this other stuff. Even though Alfred didn't want it, he was like, no. But he's a soccer coach, so I like him already. Okay? But I can call him all kinds of stuff if I want to, for the most part. Okay? Because he represents the government. As long as he's in uniform, he represents the government. Because the First Amendment and all these other rights of the Bill of Rights only apply to government actors, or to the government. Doesn't apply between me and you. If I say something to you, I don't like plaid, and he's not around, of course, okay? We're out in the country, okay? We're out in Ocala, right? And I say something that you don't like, and I take a Four Loko to the eye. Isn't that what that drink's called? Four Loko,
Yeah.
right? Okay.
I heard.
I saw it on TV. I don't even know what it is. I thought it was like, it's an energy drink, right?
No, it's alcohol.
Oh, it is alcohol? Oh, okay. It definitely ain't that then. All right. A Slurpee. Okay. So I take a canned Slurpee to the eye. At some point they'll make that. That's the penalty for talking loose at the mouth. Okay. But if I'm in uniform, I say, you want to go? You want to go, bro? Want to go? And then she hits me, I could probably lock her up. But it's probably just because I'm a cop and I'm going to retaliate against her and I can do it. Okay? But, you know, so understand that. If you're at school, and like what she was saying with the black armbands, and you want to say something, you want to protest something, no homework on Thursdays. As long as you're not causing a disruption, freedom of movement, okay, or, you know, make everybody get out of hand, I can do whatever I want to. Yes, yeah.
Can you expound a little bit on the threatening?
Threatening in and of itself is subjective, okay? Just like a long time ago when they were talking about obscenity, okay? You can't really define obscenity, you just know it when it's there, right? Threatening is, usually threatening in and of itself is going to be specific to a statute, okay? Generally. But, like with, you know, and I guess I probably should have said this earlier, with the exception of us, me and my partner doing social justice and civil rights law, I personally do divorce and family, the fun stuff, okay, juvenile and all that other stuff, you know, family-related stuff. She does the extremely exciting property claims litigation, and she does personal injury, which is funny. But as it relates to family stuff, yeah, right. As it relates to, yeah, when you get to that accident, you're like, hey, as long as you're not a tow truck driver. Yeah, I know what. But if I do or say something, and it's very similar to, say, like assault. Assault is you know, imminent fear of battery, okay, or of an imminent battery, okay. If I say something to you, and you start to feel or think that, because it's real similar to assault, but if you start to feel like if you take another step and something's going to happen to you, or if you do an action that you have every single legal right to do, and there's going to be some kind of physical or financial, whatever kind of consequences to it, that's threatening. I tell you what, if you look at me like that one more time, I'm taking this, I'm hitting you in the forehead with it. Okay? Now,
don't get shy, but you got 4 of my kids.
I am, that's all right. Just don't hit me on this side because I got a bad shoulder. Hey, please. And I'm softball. But you know, it's subjective. If I do or say something, if I come at you, like I said, threatening words and all this other stuff, it's a lot closer to assault. I think that with assault, though, you have to, it's got to be a little bit more imminent. Whereas with threatening someone, you know, it is subjective. I can say something crazy to you and you not really get offended by it, right? Because you're like, I got my 4 kids right here. I'm not worried about you. Yes?
I was just going to add, so part of threat or assault would be, when he talks about an imminent danger, it would be, for instance, like if somebody says, oh, well, I'm going to shoot you, but they have no weapon, there are no weapons in sight, you know, is that really a threat? Versus they either have a gun in their hand or there's one within reach. That would be more threatening than just the words of it.
Great. Yes, sir?
Basically, you have to be able to reasonably carry out that statement.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Like, so with threatening words, again, it's kind of like saying the word corruption.
I love that word.
Okay, I know. But corruption in and of itself is a term of art, right? Misrepresentation and fraud, those are legal terms. They might even represent corruption in the layperson's mind. But I've never seen or heard of, I've heard of a statute that might euphemistically be called an anti-corruption statute, right? But enumerated in it, and enumerated means like its own specific elements or whatever, okay? It probably will explain what it's doing and what it's called. Like, for example, you have a whistleblower statute, okay? Whistleblower is a term of art. Everybody, for those who know what the term means that you were a snitch. You ratted on somebody, okay? Usually at your job for doing something that they weren't supposed to do. That's the term. But in the statute, you're not necessarily going to talk about, right? You know, so it might be specific to what it is that you, hey, you know, if somebody's over there, you know, and you're reporting on fraud, waste, and abuse, or misrep, or something like that, and you tell somebody, you put it in writing in this state, and then you give it to the powers that be that are supposed to, you know, get that person stopped, then you should have protections. They'd still come after you because it's Florida, right? But still, okay. For those who want to know, that's 448-102, 448-101 through 6, I believe. The good one is 102, 3, and 4. Okay, 4 is if you're in a union. Mid-litigation there right now. Okay, but that's what threatening is. Does that help a little bit?
Yeah.
Okay. Now the other ones, and I don't want to beleaguer this. I'm going to play this here in just a second. But the other ones are going to be your religion, which is a big deal, especially with this president. Okay. You're going to have, I guess, freedom of press also, which is a big one with this particular president, right? The right to protest and to assemble, and in fact, the whole assemble thing, I'm going to defer to the good officer back in the back because that could be subjective also in some cases. They do have like vagrancy laws and loitering laws and stuff like that, but assembly is generally for a particular purpose or reason, right? And not just get a bunch of people together. You know, I ride bicycles. If I decide to go on a group ride with 30 bikes, hopefully we're not going to get arrested, right? Which would suck because it's funny to drive through and just get everybody that we hit. Pretty easy collar. But then you have, you know, and then there's different nuances within those, okay? You have what's called time, place, manner restrictions. Like you can't go and protest at the police station at 4 in the morning, right? When everybody's asleep and they got noise ordinances and all this other stuff and you're out there talking about, I should be able to feed the birds however I want. Okay, can you protest feeding birds? Yeah, maybe. You got nothing else to do. Yes, sir.
Is recording the police and government officials with a camera, is that free speech?
Is it free?
When I go up there, can I answer that? Because I was going to do look versus conduct. That would be perfect. But go ahead, you can.
Okay. As a general rule, yes, you can. okay? As a general rule, and I say general as in general, okay?
Right.
As a general rule, you can record the police. As a general rule, you can record any government actor doing whatever you want to, or doing their job, okay? You know, furthering the aims of the government, you can. Now, what you cannot do is you cannot use your freedom to do that as a pretext for interference, okay? You also, now, that's also a general term also, okay? Because, you know, there's a reasonableness statute or standard to that. You know, so if you're going to record an officer doing something, you need to stand at a reasonable distance or reasonably away from where that, so that officer can still, or firefighters, not just cops, you know, ambulance driver, teacher, okay? If you're working for, you know, a government school district, right? You got to get out of the way of that person to do their job. If you're, listen, man, I'm trying to get this perfect shot, man. I got this great aperture, you know, on my camera, and I need to get really close because it's, you know, digital and frames per second and all that fun stuff.
Mm-hmm.
No, if you're in the way, that cop's like, look, get out of the way. You're interfering, and he doesn't know whether or not you're, you know, trying to nudge him out because the dude's trying to kick his stash over or something like that. He doesn't know because he doesn't know who you are, unless he does know who you are. And probably annoying him already, so he's just like, you know, I like the sun hitting me at this angle, and Marsh, you're in the way, so, okay? Which, by all means, he should get the electric chair for that. But, you know, so yeah, you can record, but you can't interfere.
Fair.
Okay? It's gone to the United States Constitution, Supreme Court, and they've decided that you can do that. You'll see videos on TV where some lady was like at her, like in Chicago or something like that, and there was police officers that were arresting somebody, and she was like at her porch and was recording them, and the cops just didn't want to be recorded, and so they came up with some whatever. And they said, ma'am, you're interfering. It's like, no, I'm on my patio. I can do this, so it's not a big deal. Okay. Now, with all things being with that in mind, understand this, and he'll also be able to tell you that. I'm gonna bring up here in like 30 seconds. With that in mind, also use sound judgment. You can have a right to do X, Y, and Z. You can have you can be backed by the law to do, you know, A or B. However, say this guy right here is coming up on a crime scene, and he just got a call. And unless you've got, you know, the little radio and stuff, you have no idea what he heard, the descriptions, whatever. How many people are there? You don't know any of that stuff. And that being equal, I hate cops as a general rule, but just because growing up. But like I was telling him earlier, like all the dudes I rode motorcycles with were all cops, and all the dudes I lifted weights with were all cops. So it's just a general stupidity that I have, right? So I'm, you know, adult enough to acknowledge it. But I'm still going to give them the benefit of the doubt, or anybody in any given situation. If he comes up on a call, and I'm out there and I'm doing one of these numbers, or I'm just watching, and he comes and he goes to arrest somebody, and he's, you know, looking out for his own safety, and the laws favor them for their safety. And then out of the corner of his eye, he sees you do one of these numbers to pull your phone out, because it's either in one of your pockets. That guy doesn't, he's focusing on this guy to arrest him. So if he sees this out of the corner of his eye, and he raises up, and you do one of those numbers, and you get shot, and then there's another camera over there that caught the whole thing. Oh, he only had his phone, and he got shot. Should he have waited a second? Maybe. But it doesn't take that long to get shot also, on either side. So use relatively sound judgment. That's all I'm going to say about that. I'm sure he's not going to disagree with that. And in a lot of cases, that happens. I'm not saying all, but in a lot of cases that happens. Now, if you're already there, you come walking up, okay, and then you get shot, by all means, give that guy the electric chair, okay? Even in those states where they don't do it. Because in fact, you actually give them that injection where they're not using the right stuff. They're just using like Drano and insulin and stuff like that, so where you die over the course of like 9 weeks. That's fine for anybody, okay? I do juvenile courts. I wish they do that a lot more. But, you know, so So just use sound judgment, okay, with anything. We're born with certain organs. And the one, you can be born without a heart, and they can put some stuff in there, you can still live. You can be born without a leg, an eye, an ear. You cannot be born without a brain, okay? Your brain controls everything. Everything. So use it 100% of the time. Unless you're in a coma. And guess what? If you're in a coma and you don't just die right out of the chute, your brain's still working to, operate the other stuff. Okay? So use it, please. Now, without further ado, standing, 6'5", weighing 314 pounds. He is the 17-time regional Florida foosball champion of the world, Captain Kevin Martin. Ladies and gentlemen.
As you can tell, I'm not 6'5".
It's all right.
I don't weigh
You are
314
still
pounds either.
If you were 6'5", you'd be like, that's like
I'd be
talking about
180.
180.
They'd be walking, looking at me the whole time.
That'd be like being 180 if you were 6'5", wouldn't it?
Well, good morning. A little bit about myself. I've been a cop for 37 years, all with Vero Beach. And I got into this profession because I didn't like bullies. And one of the things I wanted to do was help put bullies away and defend those people that couldn't defend themselves. So my motto from the very beginning has always been victims first. So that's a little bit about me. Now, to that end, I will tell you that there are officers that go above and beyond what they should. And Michael is one of the ones that tries to bring that into check. Fortunately, with my organization, we don't have too many of those. But to answer your question, slider,
Oh,
the rear seat for Iceman.
Was it slider?
Yeah, I had to look it up though. And I think one of the things you want me to talk about, misdemeanors and felonies and what's the difference. Well, a misdemeanor is a minor crime that the most you can get is 1 year in jail. A felony is more serious where you can get, up to 5 years or longer depending on the felony. In my career, I've worked a lot of misdemeanors, I've worked a lot of felonies, and everything from homicide down to shoplifting. I served in the road as a road officer, I served in the detective division, I served as a road supervisor, and back as a detective supervisor. I was in IA for 12 years, so I got to investigate corruption and those type of things. For our agency, we average about 1 internal affairs complaint a year. We like to think that we do things right, but we don't always. And sometimes we have to take care of that.
Is that because Marsh drives through your...
And that's how I met Mr. Marsh. He was in a car with 3 African-American males. An officer saw him in a 7-Eleven parking lot. And when they left, he decided he was going to follow them because he didn't feel like that looked right. Saw a tag light out, makes a stop. Legal stop, but it was probably pretextual. And that's not how we like to operate, And I'm sure what he was doing because he wanted to look for drugs because white guy, 3 black guys, there's something up here. That officer was only an officer for a couple of years, and he's gone to work for the feds, so you all should feel safe.
Oh, no.
Actually, an air marshal, so hopefully he'll be all right.
So he's just sitting back there with a little bitty bottle.
Right.
Yeah.
Nobody knows who he is anyway.
Yeah. But my job mainly is to enforce laws in the state of Florida and the Constitution. We also have to do that. Freedom of speech, one that you were talking about, assault. You can also, you have freedom of speech, but can you pick up a phone call and start harassing someone over the phone? Doesn't have anything to do with your speech. It has to do with harassment. So there is, like you said, there are crimes, and you talked about assault, and there has to be elements to the assault, like I'm going to smack you in the face because I don't like your hat, and I take a step forward, draw back, that's an assault. But I have had aggravated assaults where the guy had a gun in his hand saying, I'm going to shoot you, but the victim said, I knew he wasn't going to shoot me, I wasn't in fear. Is that a crime?
Well, you have to have an imminent fear, don't you? Reason.
Well, if it's...
We're this far away, I'm going to shoot you. Now, this guy had already shot up in the air once.
Oh, we already... Oh.
He had shot up in the air
Yeah,
once,
I think that
and he said, I'm going to shoot you if you come back over here again. And it turns out this guy was a drug dealer, and
Right.
the guy was trying to purchase drugs. Is that a crime?
It's not a way to start a relationship there.
No.
I would say yes, because after you shot, it would give a prudent person reasonable that he may shoot.
But the guy tells you he's not in fear. I never thought that he was going to shoot me. He was just running off at the mouth.
Well,
And
just know then.
it's brandishing also, isn't there?
It could be a reckless display, but it's not
Yes.
an ag assault. It's not an ag assault. So, not everything is black and white, and that's some of the things that as new officers come in, you have to try and teach them. It's not all black and white. There's always shades of gray in there, if you will. We like to think that we do it right, but we don't always.
Let me freeze you for just a second. You have been quiet back there, sir. It's like the Plaid family. Okay. Just you're familiar with the term burglary, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now, describe a burglary for me. Like, what is it?
It's where you would go and steal from. Is that what you call it?
Dealer. No, go ahead. This is where you would steal it. So, okay, so let me, okay. Ah, I'll give you that. Yeah, see, you lucked out, man. I was about to shoot that out too. All right. Green shirt. You know what a burglary is? Just describe what a burglary is to you.
When you go into public property, or I guess private property too, and steal.
Okay, that it?
I don't know, yeah.
Okay, so let me ask you this. All right, I'll describe this. Say I'm walking down the street and I see some Christmas lights. And it's December. Okay? See some Christmas lights. And as I'm walking, I see the Christmas lights and this family loading up their Winnebago. No, that's the big things, right? Yeah, not the station wagon. Okay, the Woody. That's what I wanted to say. The Woody. And everybody's hopping in there. And you hear, hey, did you lock the door? No, we're only going to be gone for like 2 weeks. All right. Just put the chain on with the magnet. I'm coming up with this, and I'm like, it'd be kind of impossible to put the chain on if you're outside. But whatever, okay? So then you're like, and then all of a sudden it's like, hey, did you grab the money that was off the counter? No, it's only like 90,000. I'm just going to leave it there. We're going to be back in 2 weeks. Did you cut the security system on? No, because ADP costs too much. You know, they got a per turn on charge, okay? I'm just leaving all that stuff off. Let's go, okay? All right. So now you're sitting over here on the other side of the street with your mask on top right there because you were going to go skiing somewhere.
In Florida.
In Florida, yeah. Okay? And it's like that 1 48-hour time frame in February when it's really, really cold, even though I just said it was December. But whatever, don't mind that. Okay, so you're like, huh, 90 grand, only the chain is on the door, and yeah, there's no security. I can get in there, get 90 grand, come back out, and buy some Four Locos, right? A whole bunch of them. Are they expensive?
I don't drink that, so I couldn't say. I think it's like $3.
Yeah, you think it's $3. I think it might be. Somebody told me once. Okay? Now, so say I walk over to the house. Boom! Get the door in, but it's on the chain. Right? Or even nudged it. Okay? Or I just do one of those numbers. The door happens to open. Walk in.
You just committed burglary.
See 90 grand sitting on the counter? And it's sitting there with a bag and a note on there that says, listen, burglar, or whomever, if you just happen to take this, just want to let you know I got peanut butter and jelly in there too, just make yourself comfortable for a little while. And you do, and then you leave with your 90 grand. Okay? And it's 11:30 in the afternoon. Okay? So you don't have to turn the lights on or anything like that. You don't want to leave like fingerprints or anything anywhere. Okay? Is that a burglary? Did I describe to you a burglary? What do you think?
Yes.
What do you think? What do you think?
Non-lawful entry, so yes.
What do you think?
Doesn't burglary have like a value range that it has to be?
90,000. All that has been given
You
as
don't have to
taken.
steal
grand theft.
anything to commit burglary.
What do you think? That burglary? Okay. What do you think? Burglary?
Yes.
Okay. What do you think?
Yeah.
What do you think? What's the answer?
Yes or no?
The answer is,
Just the general.
the general thing for burglary is entering and remaining with the intent to commit a crime therein. So if he broke into the house with the intent to steal the money, but now he finds a note on the money, say, hey, take it and make yourself a sandwich. It becomes a little bit more complicated. That's
All
where
right,
it
yeah, I
becomes a little
forgot.
bit
I did
gray.
add that in there.
Yeah.
Okay, so take that part out.
What, the note or the
No, okay,
sandwich?
fact, the note, yeah.
All right, so
I didn't
yes,
realize that,
so
because
if
that's
he
almost
entered-
like the inviting the
Yeah, so if he entered and remained with the intent to commit a crime, which what he described he did, that's a burglary. It doesn't have to be theft. It can be an assault. It could be a vandalism. You know, you can go in there and just kick the guy's TV over and break
But it's
it.
11:30 in the afternoon.
That doesn't matter. That doesn't
Florida?
matter. In Florida, it does not
Like,
matter.
okay, what I meant was as a general rule, though.
As a general rule, most burglaries are committed at night. But let me say this. You go into a business, and you're in this business, and you're shopping, and you see one of the employees go back into a back room, come out, shuts the door. It's not open to the public. And you decide that you're going to go in that room and see what's in there. And you go in there, and you find a purse, and it's got a bunch of money on it. And you take it. Could you be charged with burglary then? The store's open to the public.
So Florida must be one of those states that we had that exception in. All right. So since the good officer just messed up my whole hypo, even though he didn't, what I was going to get at was, in most states, a lot of them are changing it, okay? But in most states, the answer would have been no, okay? Because technically a burglary can only occur, technically, at night, okay? But many states modified that, because during the day it was usually like an unlawful entry or a breaking and entering or something like that. But then, and usually the penalties were the same. A lot of states, and at the same time, they had a different set of standards for residential, and then they had a different set of standards for business or commercial. And the reason why is because a person being at home at night is at their most defenseless. Because you're walking around the house with just a left sock on and that's all. I mean, that's just me. Okay, and so, but what he was talking about, and I'm gonna let him finish because I don't want to put words in his mouth, but there are some states that blend the two and say, look, you can burglarize during the day, burglarize at night. It doesn't really matter, because a long time ago there were only, 8 to 11 core crimes that you could commit. Okay, like assault, battery, burglary, had like mayhem. They had a bunch of stupid ones and stuff. They call it something different now. But mayhem now is the guy in the insurance commercials. Okay, so, but that's what I was kind of getting at, because it does change in a lot of cases, and I'm not sure if Florida's one of them because I don't do criminal, but the penalty or the potential for penalties would be higher if it's at night. Now, Florida's is not a felony. What is the?
Then you have occupied, unoccupied.
Yeah, we do have that. It's enhanced penalties
Yeah.
if the business is occupied or the house is occupied. It's enhanced.
What is the felony blank rule, whatever? Or if you in a burglary and then you commit another felony, like you kill
During the
somebody.
commission of a felony.
During a commission of felony.
Yeah.
That's where it's enhanced. If you get inside,
Mhm.
like if, in what he's describing, not only do we charge him with burglary, but we charge him with grand theft on top of that for stealing the money. So it's not just a burglary. We also charge him with a secondary crime.
Right. Now, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
With burglary, like if since it's no longer has the day-night distinction, what's the difference between burglary and breaking and entering? If burglary doesn't involve
Breaking and entering is just the act of entering into a business.
Illegally.
Or, yeah. It's not, there's no statute that says breaking and entering. It's burglary.
And I guess, like, the things that they're talking about right now too, when he's saying generally burglary is this, and then we're talking about Florida law, and he said about different states have different laws. What it is, there's codified law and there's common law. Burglary, what Malik was talking about, is common law burglary. And that's when you're talking about law, that's how law evolved. You had common law, so we took this common law burglary. It had to be at night. You had to, with
Unlawful breaking or entering
breaking
to the dwelling house of another
with
with the intent to commit a felony therein.
So
at night.
that's where it started. That's where the law started, and it was common law. And then what happened is you, as you're going through with the particular states, they started codifying it. So you can actually go on to Florida and look up what the criminal statutes are. You can look up the civil statutes in Florida. And so they actually, and that's what the officer was talking about, is the particulars for breaking and entering versus burglary versus trespassing. It's all codified. So it actually says, and what I mean by codified is just,
It's written down.
put in code for the law. So it's actually broken down into what is criminal. So that's kind of the differences between what they're talking about. But you can actually look up, and most states now, I think, have codified criminal law. And it's, I mean, it's huge. If you look it up online, it's a huge, huge list, and you can go into each section and see what they are. And they're broken down even further into, you know, like, what do you call it? Like white collar crimes, and things like that. So those are the differences.
You got family statutes, education statutes,
It's all
which are up in the 1000s.
written down.
And you have to use them in court too. Yeah.
I was going to say, did you want to go back to when you accused the First Amendment stuff? Or did we already answer those questions?
Yeah, well, I was going to ask him a slightly.
Oh, because you were talking about assembly.
Well, I was going to touch on the time to matter restriction, but you want to hang yourself with that stuff.
So I didn't know if you wanted to.
Well, we can talk about
Okay.
that. A group of people want to get together and hang out in 7-Eleven parking lot. And this often happens late at night. All of a sudden, you got 30 or 40 people hanging in that parking lot. Is that an unlawful assembly, if you will? No, but the store could call and say, hey, we can't get any customers here because all these people are in our parking lot, and we could ask them to leave. Where we have declared unlawful assemblies is where we've gone into a situation that's starting to turn violent, where people are starting to talk and talk about doing crimes and either attacking the cops or attacking a store or so forth. And we'll get on and say, we're declaring this an unlawful assembly, we're ordering everybody to disperse. And you'll see that all the time on the news, where you'll see cops doing that. And of course, it never works for the most part. They're still going to riot. They're still going to do their thing. But for the most part, like you said, if you wanted to come out and protest the police department, walk up and down our sidewalk with a sign saying we all stink, we're all pigs, that's okay. It's freedom of speech, and we're here to defend that also. Where it becomes a problem is if he's stopping people that are also trying to walk down the sidewalk, and he says, hey, stop, I want you to get in here with me, and they're saying, look, leave me alone, I just want to go.
But let me ask you this, though. If I had that sign, and it's Marsh's house,
As long as you're in the public right-of-way, I mean, you can't necessarily go on his property.
Right. But then the argument at that point is, if you came out and you told me that I couldn't do that, my argument isn't so much against him. My argument is what I'm doing on government property, which
Right.
technically would be the sidewalk.
Right.
See what I mean? Does that make sense? Now,
Try and do that in front of a judge's house.
Oh.
They frown
the
upon
guy in
it.
Texas, they had a public, they
Or
had
state
a-
attorney.
they had
Yeah,
a,
state attorneys, they're like us, they don't really have.
They're in Palm Beach.
Judges can do
Yeah, no,
whatever
yeah,
they want,
just,
you know,
I,
to whoever they want.
yes, they do. And if they call, yes, Judge. And that's how you always, whether you're an attorney or not, yell at him, yell at me, Yell at your kids. Yell at your mom or your grandma. Never in your life yell at a judge.
Now, what if the judge isn't working?
Never.
What if he's in this? What if he's in
your life.
Publix shopping?
And it's me?
And I go up to him and say, you know, that was really a messed up
And the judge knows
decision.
you?
Yeah, that was a messed up
And the judge
decision.
knows you?
Yeah.
No. No.
Now, does that seem fair to me? That's not fair.
It's not fair, but hey, listen.
Is that legal?
Skin cancer isn't fair either, and it happens, so.
I will tell you this. You can be right all the way to the moon and back, right? But it's not worth getting hurt over or being killed. So just bear that in mind. If you're doing some kind of protest or you're exercising your freedom of speech and you see that one cop who you look and see in his eyes like, this guy's not getting it, he's not buying it, I'm not going to take a beating over it. You know, because, you know, they're not all good.
I do have one important question, though. Not so much describe it, but I guess in your own words with your background, describe profiling.
Okay. Profiling would be taking a particular set of circumstances, black male, beard, late at night, big rims on the car, and saying, that guy's a drug dealer. And I know because they always use 27th Avenue to take drugs from here to there. So I'm going to look for a reason to stop him. Okay? So that would be profiling, if you will.
So then let me ask you this, then what part, and if I you've been doing this for 37 years. Okay, so you've seen hundreds, if not maybe thousands of people or officers or whatever. In my opinion, profiling generally comes from a place, and it's usually individual to the person that's doing it. Okay, unless there's a set of rules that say you're supposed to do whatever. But as a general rule, I would say that it comes if put it this way. If you have a guy who's got like a big, huge jacket and a bunch of red sticks of something with wires coming out, there's a strong possibility that intelligence will tell you that you might want to stand away from that guy, okay?
Right.
Outside of that, okay, with interactions with people, okay, and being a black attorney or a like male period, you know, I've dealt with it myself, but what part, in your opinion, do you think not necessarily racism, but where, and I'm speaking on officers, where an officer either lives or grew up comes into play?
It does. It's huge. You know, officers develop their opinions based on their family, their upbringing. A lot of that is set beforehand. A lot of it is set after they go to a police department or a sheriff's department and the culture that's embedded there and what they're taught. Like we had one officer, the officer that stopped you. The sergeant that he had before was really big into that, and he used to profile all the time before they came out with it, and he was good. He was very good, and I would say I don't think that he ever put anybody in jail that didn't deserve to go to jail, but he would sit up on US 1 at night and watch for the traffic to come between Fort Pierce and Gifford and see who it was, and then he would look for a reason to stop him. He was a K-9 officer years before he was a sergeant, so he had that experience and those knowledge and that type of thing. So a lot of it is culture, a lot of it is what you learn at home.
As far as profiling goes, I know with your agency you have a bias-based profiling.
That's correct.
And you guys set a standard. Is that something that's a commonality across other departments, and why did you guys go to that?
It's an accreditation standard to be accredited within the state of Florida and also COLLIER. So any agency that's an accredited agency in Florida will have that bias-based profiling.
What is that?
That's basically saying that I'm profiling him because of who he is and what my perception of him is.
So you're accredited to have this program, a bias-based?
No, we're accredited through the state of Florida, saying that the state of Florida recognizes us as being a professional police department, that we have a certain set of rules and standards that conform with other police departments that are accredited within the state of Florida, that the state of Florida themselves has written. And it's made up of, I'll get to you in just 1 second. It's made up by chiefs and sheriffs and the Department of Law Enforcement. They all sit on a board together and they say, okay, and I'll tell you that some of the rules that they have are ridiculous. You know, we'll have to change things because they changed 2 words, you know. And it's a big process to go through. It's very time consuming. But what it does is it sets out standards so you know that the particular set of standards that we're using are accepted throughout the state.
As far as what is okay to profile for and what is not?
Well, there's nothing that says it's okay to profile. Now, what I can do is I can see this gentleman and I could say, yeah, I'm wondering if he's dealing dope or whatever. Doesn't mean that I can't think about it and watch him. I just can't stop him because of what he looks like.
So that's why there was a case, I can't remember which case it was, but it was a case where a man was shot in his vehicle, and they came, there was video or audio, I think, that came later that talked about, you could hear the officer saying before the stop, well, we're looking for a black male, and there were a couple of descriptive things. And so that was one of the things that came up, because then he stopped this particular car. So he didn't stop the car because of the taillight. He stopped the car because he saw the person in the car. And that's what he's saying, that that's not...
I'll give you an example of one that we had where we had a burglary and a shooting where well, it wasn't a burglary, it was an armed robbery and a shooting where they shot the clerk. The clerk was alive and everything. Gave a complete description of what the person looked like. We set up a perimeter to try and keep the bad guy from coming out. Well, this one van's pulling into the perimeter. The corporal stops the van. Guess what? The bad guy was in the van. He arrested him. Guess what? Judge threw it out.
Because there's no reason to have...
No reason to have stopped the van. Wait, they're coming into an active perimeter that we've set up for crime. So these are some of the things that we don't understand. So the bad guy got away with it.
And this is one of the things,
Technicality.
when I was
Yeah.
talking about how common law, and throughout, all of these years, we've gone to codified law, and how the law changes and how we do things change, because profiling used to be huge. I mean, look at just with New York alone, and they had to stop and frisk. Well, they can't do that anymore, although it's still happening. But it changes because we realize, one, some of the things don't necessarily work the way that we thought that they would. Or second, we realize that constitutionally we are, trampling over people's rights. And so we do make the changes, and then it does make some things
More difficult.
But it's done because we've seen, that we are trampling on people's rights. We thought that we maybe were doing a good thing, but it wasn't working, so now we have to change it. And that's why we change the law or change the way that it's presented to a judge, or the arguments that are used.
So,
Yes, ma'am. You've been trying to alligator arm it over there.
And just with the discussion of inherent bias and where officers grow up, and also how laws need to be changed over time, what is your personal opinion on some of the suggested policies of diversifying forces so they more represent the areas that they're policing, or even bringing in people from those areas that can, not liaison, trying to just advise the officers on different cultures and make sure that those biases aren't presented in how they actually police different populations?
We have a standard when we hire somebody that we try to, they have to reach this standard. And one of the things, like our department, you have to have a degree. For years, we have not sponsored anyone through the police academy because the police academies are open to anyone in the state of Florida, so anybody can come, so why spend that money? But what I pointed out to the chief is we're not a small agency, we're considered a medium-sized agency, but we're not always getting the best recruits anymore. When we had an instructor down there that was retired from us and was teaching at the academy, he would give us the heads up, hey, you want to get this one? And we would get the best ones. So I said, we need to go back and we need to find who we want and send them to school. And basically they're out of commission for almost a year by the time they get done with school and everything. So as we're doing that, we're going through these applications. And at first I didn't know that this lady was African American. What I saw was, wow, this person's got a bachelor's degree already with a 3.8 GPA. That's outstanding. And she's a female. which we want to hire females. Let's take her and make her a test. Well, come to find out she's African American. How great was that for us? Now, she's already interacting with the community. I mean, she graduates at the end of this month, but she's interacting with the community. Her husband is an Army recruiter. Wish I could get him to hire him too, because it's an outstanding family. We want that. We want that. We want to go in, and we look for that when we're going through. But they have to meet our minimum standards. We can't lower our standards to hire somebody, whether it's a female or a person of color.
Let me ask you this though, kind of doubling up on what she was saying. Does, in your opinion, does simply adding a diversified face solve the problem?
No, because you don't know how that person's going to interact. So, I mean, it has to be the right fit,
Right.
you know, and the way our chief is and the way he feels about the community, he grew up, he's a star quarterback at his high school and went to go play in college and blew out his knee. He's a small guy too. He's a little bit smaller than I am. But he is such a person that he doesn't care the color of a person's skin or the gender. He wants the right fit for the agency and for the community that we control. So, do we want to diversify? Yes. Yes.
My question was less about race and more about a lot of agencies bringing in people who don't necessarily understand the communities that they're policing, whatever their color or gender, and just different programs to make sure that they're not coming in with assumptions that don't fit the people.
Right.
Like a bias of more of an area rather than
Right.
the people,
We would have no problem, and we like hiring hometown people because they're more a tendency for them to stay as opposed to getting somebody from outside and bringing it in. But what I find when we go to the academy and we look through the rosters and we go through and we look at their applications, 90% of them are from Martin County. We have very few in our community that are coming up, maybe one or two that come up in the sheriff's department. Our sheriff's department has 3 or 4 instructors in each academy, so they get their first hooks into them before we even get an opportunity. So,
I don't know if that's a good or bad thing.
You're saying tipping them off.
for the employee, I'll tell you it's a bad thing.
So getting back to, that is a bummer that that guy got away on that illegal search of the van, but.
It wasn't illegal.
Right, okay. But like I was telling you, on my side of the state, Southwest Florida, they will just abuse the piss out of that. And that's why that's why they made, illegal searches like that way back when in the Constitution, because the British abused the crap. And like I said, actually it just happened, the Lee County Sheriff just did it. A guy just harvested his pot, whole van full of pot, he took off, and they shut down this whole street and were just searching everybody. And there again, like I said, over by me, they will abuse it to the max. So that's where I still agree with the Constitution.
And here's the thing though, and this is where the system comes in. So I'll just give you an example. I was in juvenile court, and there was a kid who was riding his bike, and I think he was 14 years old, riding his bike on the sidewalk, and a plainclothes officer did not identify himself and stopped the kid on the bike and ended up arresting the kid. So he was arrested, went in front of the judge, and one of the first things that happened in this case was that the kid's attorney came in, and of course his argument was, well, he was arrested because they found pot on him. That was what happened. But the argument was that what?
No, I was saying, why'd you stop the kid?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right, that it was an
I think it
illegal
was-
stop, and then it was an illegal search, and so,
Mhm.
so the kid, he ended up going, nothing happened.
That was a POP case.
A POP case.
POP
Piss
case.
off police.
Pissing off the police. That's all that was.
No.
Wow, you're
And-
honest. Oh my God.
Well, yeah, I mean,
Dang.
it's one of those things.
And so these things happen, but then you have the next step, and the next step, and the next step. So I think that a lot of people don't realize, we kind of get like stuck at the police part of it, when there are all of these things that happen along the way where evidence gets tossed out because of things that happen, and in a lot of cases when the police are trying to do the right thing, but because of the law and then the arguments that are made in court, it does get thrown out, or it gets dropped down to a misdemeanor. Maybe it was a felony something, but then some of the evidence is not admissible, so it gets knocked down. So, I think that we get stuck sometimes on this initial thing, but that's why we have the rest of the system, so that we don't just throw somebody in jail without going to court. Yeah.
So this is a problem. There's a lot of people that can't even afford a lawyer, and they're pleading for something that they technically aren't guilty of. So that's the problem. The court system has gotten so out of control, so big. Then you got the bonding too. A lot of people can't even bond out. I mean, so they're getting, like I said to you, I still think it's true. It's really sad. In my opinion, everything's illegal and you are not free. You are literally, like we were talking about the code enforcement system. We have the same code enforcement Nazis by us. I mean, they are completely out of control.
Well, I disagreed a little bit with you on
Right.
this. Okay.
I didn't say you agreed.
When I leave here,
Right.
I'm going to go home, pick up my wife, and we're going to go up to Brevard County and go to a couple of stores up there. I'm free to do that.
Yep.
Only thing I got to pay for is gas and any merchandise we buy.
right.
Now, if on my way there I decide I want to drive my car at 110 miles an hour, that may not be right. That's not a freedom that I have.
Right.
So, so are we free? Yes. And I've been in foreign countries and lived in Mexico. I've been in Argentina. I came back, yeah. My dad, I was 12. I lived there for 3 years. We had to come back. He was working for NASA. They moved him to another site. And the town that I lived in ended up turning into a big drug cartel town. It was really bad. So I'm glad I came back.
I'll interject. I lived in the Philippines for 2 years. Came back 7 to 9 years ago. What's that?
Where?
Davao in the Philippines. Honestly, when I came back, I was just shocked how out of control it is. I was there for 2 years. I was more free in the Philippines than I am in America now. We have the most people in jail and prison than the whole rest of the world.
Saying that a person is free is subjective. In a lot of cases,
Right.
it depends on who you are, where you are. A person that lives in Miami can say, I've got all this whatever, versus a person in Idaho or Wyoming where they're not going to see anybody forever, but they have like a $1 limit per season.
Right.
Like, the government is trying to break my back because I got a Second Amendment, so you can't tell me I can't have a RPG / 6-shooting rocket launcher, right? If they make it and it's a gun, I should be able to have it. And they got all these deer. I'm using the accent on purpose because nobody in Wyoming sounds like that.
Exactly.
Okay? But I got a deer. I should be able to annihilate them with my flame-throwing, rocket-launching super soaker, right?
Yep.
But no, the rule is you have $1, and that's all, and there's probably a reason why. And
It's conservation.
Right, and you might want to kill more because guess what? They pushed that other buck over there. Maybe that buck had like a learning disability or something like that. They're like, hey, go on over there and graze by that guy with the rocket launcher is getting ready to hit you, so that they can survive, right? He gets shot. You're mad because you see all these other ones that you can just Rambo down, right? It just is what it is. Are you gonna get all mad about it? No, or yeah, right?
Yeah.
The guy down in Miami, who landlord is raising his rent every 30 days, and they can't fix the water bill, and there's a nuisance, and the lady upstairs who's playing like Tito Puente's first album, right? Before they even had albums, right? He just has like a little thing, she just winds it up and just plays it. And that guy might be perfectly fine. So it's subjective. It's subjective as to what you yourself feel. The thing about living You know, and I was arguing with some folks that don't quite get it, but the thing about living in a place or a country, okay, or in any area, it could be a commune, right? If you call yourself a part of it, okay, this almost might sound like I sound like that guy is literally getting ready to come out. I guess I have grown up. But if you live in a society and you call yourself a part of that society, then you've adopted a set of standards that exist within that society, right? There's, you know, a couple of nuances here and there. Okay, we got a Supreme Court system that somehow or another you can do something over there that you can't do over here, which is completely stupid. But that part is what it is, according to our federal court judge that I had to argue that with. But if you're a part of it, then that's just the rules that exist. You can complain about whatever, but if you call yourself a part of it, then shut up about it. Because the alternative is, you can still stay there, but just don't call yourself a part of it. You know what I mean? You know, and it's not the whole, well, if you don't like it, you can leave, because that's stupid, right? But you can't extricate yourself from that group of people that have decided that they're going to accept whatever. You know, if there's a nuance, you can change the nuance, but whatever it is, it just happens to be what it is. I'm not saying accept it, I'm not even saying like it, right? I live here until I leave, and hopefully I will, right? But while I'm here, for the most part, I can complain about something that specifically happens that annoyed the heck out of me, but, you know, a law can be changed, right? Society in and of itself cannot. A culture cannot. A practice or a tradition, for the most part, it can only evolve. And if the people aren't ready to evolve yet, then it's going to be what it is. Racism isn't because of the laws or the laws that don't exist. Racism is because of a practice that has continuously happened as tradition, okay? And where we are right now is people have passed laws to try to shape practice and tradition. And when people are told that they have to do something that they don't know any other ways, it's DNA,
They rebel.
They resent it. They not only rebel against that thing, but then they resent who is supposed to be favored in that case. And that's where we are right now, right?
Agreed.
And so, you know, now, if I'm part of the class that the law was created for, I'm like, look, the law was just created for me to be the same as everybody else. You can resent it, you can hate me, just don't take away my right to be the same as you. And we're good. Don't live near me, don't do this and the other, but don't prevent me from being able to exercise or live my life the way that you're able to. And so as an example that I was giving, for that person that's bringing himself back down to parity when they were already on the top pecking order, they're going to feel like they're losing all this stuff. No, you just are feeling equality, and it kind of sucks a little bit. Because you don't get to go outside, you know, with only a left sock on and go and hula hoop. Whereas nobody can do it, unless I can do it. But I'm not going to, right? But, you know, so that's where that comes in. And the thing with police, you know, the thing with policing, everybody resents being told what to do. When your dad tells you what to do, and you don't like it, what do? You're like, but you still do it, right? And it sucks. And if your pops wants to put some emphasis on it, you better do that, right? Because he's 6'3", and you're like, I'm smart. I still have this, it still works, right? The alternative is I get pounded into the ground, even though he's not going to do that. But he's going to make you think that he is, okay? And that's the alternative. So people are going to resent the police. The problem, in my eye, with policing, or the problem with policing, or even any of this abusive type stuff, is when you start to inject culture and background, and the fact that like with profiling, I live in far, far West Wellington. The only interaction I have with Black and Latinos are music videos and the radio. And if everybody on the music video is shooting each other, or in the movie is shooting each other, maybe that's how they are. And then when I go out, I'm going to that area where there's some crime and they're shooting each other. I'm like, oh, they really are. Then it reinforces that. And then that's all you think. Because when I go back, I'm going back to Mayberry. Right? We don't do that over there. We only do cocaine over there. Right? So, not only cocaine, they do other stuff. Yes.
So we're completely off of this topic.
No.
Back to another one.
And I'm trying to keep it as PG as possible because we got this man in the 6th grade, even though he's taller than everybody.
I had some specific questions about what are your rights in Florida when you are stopped by an officer? Either
Good,
with law enforcement
What do you mean
or-
stop for?
Stops, period. An officer stops me and asks me questions.
Well, he's not going to, hopefully if he stops, he's stopping you because you've committed a traffic offense.
Before you answer that, in order to be able to stop, what has to happen?
He has to see an offense occur,
What is that called?
a traffic violation.
Probable cause,
Reasonable
reasonable
Yeah.
suspicion.
Yeah. So,
Be that guy.
so if I stop you for speeding, I have a right, and what we're supposed to do is, hi, I'm Captain Martin with the Vero Beach Police Department, let you know this is being audio recorded or video recorded this time.
Man, you just pulled me over because I'm black.
Yes, okay.
Or because I'm white and Wabasso.
Yeah, I mean, you ask for license and registration, right? You get the license and registration. Now, I have a right to give you a warning, I have a right to write you a ticket, or to let you go, you know? But your right, what you have to understand is driving is a privilege, okay? So if I'm stopping you for violation of Florida law, or Florida statute, and I have a right to correct it, I'm supposed to correct it, that's my job. And one of the things that people hate about cops is the tickets and the traffic. But do you know that more is lost in traffic crashes annually than bank robberies?
I don't have a problem with traffic tickets. I've been pulled over for being white and Wabasso without any traffic violations, so
Well,
that's.
and I can't answer for another
My
department.
question would be then, what rights do I have as far as being detained, them wanting to search your car, saying yes or
Okay.
no? What are the rights in Florida?
I will tell you, I'm a cop. And if I got pulled over for speeding, for whatever, for driving in Wabasso at 2 o'clock in the morning, because I'm, for whatever reason I'm there, and I'm asked, can I search, are you carrying any weapons or drugs or anything like that? I can tell you that, and they ask to search my car, I would tell them no.
Okay.
Because there's no reason for them to search my car.
Correct.
Okay? There really isn't. I know I don't have any drugs in there. What I don't know is the guy that's searching the car, I don't know that he's not going to drop something in there because
Correct.
he's mad at me because I've said something bad about the sheriff, right? Which I would never do, but I would. You would. I wouldn't.
I would.
I would.
Yeah, but I won't. But what I'm saying is I wouldn't allow that. You don't have to allow someone to search your car.
What would be the only way that you would have, like, what would be a circumstance where you would have to allow them to?
If they smell weed in the car, they have reasonable suspicion that you're carrying
So
drugs.
If they,
Plain view.
generally, what that would mean, there is in Florida, if they smell weed, they can search your car, but then reasonable suspicion means, like, they would have to see something, they can't, like, if they saw something like lying on the seat, that gave them reason to think that, that you had done something unlawful. And I think along with that, with what both of them have said, is, you also have to use your common sense when something like this is happening. So for instance, you're stopped, you know that you have nothing in your vehicle, you have never smoked weed in your life, there's no way that it smells like weed, but the officer says, oh, I smell weed, I'm going to search your car.
Correct.
This is when you see things get hairy and people start arguing and whatnot. What we tell people and what they have both said is you need to be smart about things. This isn't the time to necessarily get into a big argument with people. You definitely want to say, I do not agree with you searching my car. You want to say those things. But, this also isn't the time to
Be a constitutional scholar.
yeah, and get into a fight.
Don't talk yourself into a ticket.
And survive the encounter.
And the other thing that I would say is when these things do happen and, your car is searched and, maybe you're put in handcuffs or whatever, that's then also the time that you visit with an attorney and tell them what happened, and then go through the process of you know, going after the officer for what he did. Because and that's the thing that, because we just tell people, you know, get out of this situation without, you know, things coming up.
Starting an argument is never, yeah. No, I'm just saying it's never good. You know, it just never ends up well.
And it's the thing that I think that's difficult with the police. I mean, I've been pulled over only a couple of times, and one was for a tail light, and I knew I had done nothing, but I still, you know, you get amped up because it's just the situation.
Why are you picking on me?
Yeah, and I mean, you don't, and it wasn't, it just, you know, made me nervous.
Yeah.
And I mean, I was 16 at the time, so I was extra nervous, but, so it's one of those situations too where usually when there are police involved, it's a confrontational thing anyway, just generally, because of...
He doesn't know if he's gonna get shot.
Right,
Well,
no, I
and
know.
it's...
You don't know if you're going to get shot.
And usually if there's...
One was killed
police involved,
yesterday.
there's a
Yeah, an
reason.
officer was killed yesterday on a traffic stop, so,
So, anyway.
yeah.
I've had quite different circumstances happen on traffic stuff. We're not going to talk about that. My other question was, what about the other people in the car? Are they required to identify themselves?
Good question.
Good question. And we talked about that in your case. Did the officers have a right to order the occupants out of the car? It depends. Now, I asked them why, if they're wanting to run a dog around the car, my question to the canine supervisor would be, why would you want everybody out of the car? Because if somebody's holding on them, the dog's going to alert to the car, which then would give you the reasonable grounds to search everybody. The reason they had everybody get out of the car is because it's for the safety of the officer that's controlling the dog, because he has to be focused on the dog.
I'm talking about before a search. I didn't get pulled over.
We have a problem with that in our agency, with people doing that.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not something that we condone, or that we
If
would.
I'm getting pulled over for a simple traffic stop, they're not searching my car, they do not have the right to question other people.
I don't think they do, but again, now, let's say that they do. And someone in the car with you is a wanted felon. Did you know that that person was a wanted felon?
Well, I mean, I'm not asking questions like this. The reason
Yeah.
I'm asking, I work with a population that is very, very wary of
Mhm.
officers, does not like to, you know, give information. I work with 18 to 23-year-olds, a lot of them are street kids. So I'm asking so that I know.
Yeah. My advice would be cooperate.
I don't like that advice. I want to know what my rights are.
You wanna
As
know
a,
what
as a general rule.
Like it.
As a general rule.
Yeah,
if a
but you're
police-
going to, I understand what you're saying, but you're dealing with a group of people right now,
Right.
and I'm not saying the people you're dealing with, but you're dealing with a particular age group right now that we have a problem with,
Absolutely.
communicating with.
Absolutely.
And it's because they won't communicate back. We have a deputy sheriff that is dead, and there are people that know who shot him that are not willing to come forward with the information, even though it wasn't intentional. He wasn't the intended target. It was an accident.
I know.
And he'll be treated that way by the court system. We already know what the potential thing could be for him, and there's a possibility that he may not even be able to be legally charged. Okay? But they're not cooperating with the cops.
But now here I am, and I'm someone that they do cooperate and they do communicate with.
Mhm.
So. to
Would you betray their trust
No.
for justice?
Justice is defined in many ways.
I'm talking about legal justice.
Legal
I guess it
justice.
depends on the situation too. I mean, like say for example, you know,
Like in
when I
this
was-
situation, I know.
like when I was teaching.
But see, and I'll tell you here now, for me, I have a problem with that. If you know who shot him and killed him, because all you're doing is allowing that
But they
person.
know too.
Yeah,
It's
but-
not like they don't know.
Right, but they don't have proof.
I don't
Right.
believe.
Yeah. Here's the thing. By not saying something, you're allowing that to continue. That person is still running around with a gun, and there's a good possibility the person that did it was a convicted felon who shouldn't have a gun. So
Yes.
we're still allowing that. And now this has happened by accident. But that's not to say that this
Okay,
person
but-
say, okay, this was an accident,
But now-
this one's not going to be an accident, and I'm not going to have any problems with
Let
doing
me
it.
ask you, but let's take this a step further. Look, that's a slippery slope for me. Because now I come to you with this information, something worse happens 2 weeks down the line, and I can't get that information because now.
But
I
Heard of
betrayed
Crime
someone's
Stoppers?
trust.
Crime Stoppers, you remain anonymous.
That-
You
I'm a
don't
broken
have to give your
girl.
name.
That's never gonna happen, but I'm sorry, that for me, my personal distrust of officers is because of very valid and real issues and circumstances that I've had happen to me or witnessed in my life.
But how do you rebuild
So,
Yeah.
That's a
by
million dollar
asking these questions and sitting.
Yeah,
Yeah, but what you're asking, excuse me, but what you're asking is, how do I get out of doing this?
No, that's not what I'm asking.
You know, can they ask for the IDs of the people in the car?
Yes.
And I will tell you, it depends on the reason for the stop.
Okay. For a simple traffic stop.
Simple traffic stop, they should not. But if you argue with that officer, even though you may be 100% right, you could end up in the back of his car in handcuffs because he doesn't know the law.
And then you have a situation where it's called search incident to an arrest, which
Yeah.
then everybody comes out and you search everybody. See,
I understand all that, and
No.
I'm also capable of being assertive without being aggressive or argumentative.
but here's the thing, if a person, you know, there's a term for all this, I'm not sure if the police use it, I know as it relates to us, we use it, and it's called, in a situation where an officer pulls over someone and they had absolutely no reason to, no reasonable suspicion, no probable cause, no nothing, okay? If they were just profiling in and of itself, profiling is obviously subjective also. They just pulled a person over, okay? On a fishing expedition, okay? Now, say they walked up and they saw a gun on the floor. Plain view, they can yank everybody out, get IDs and all the other stuff, because they saw a gun. However, all of that stuff is going to get tossed because there was still no reason to pull the person over.
Right.
Now, say you yourself were driving. You're the driver, okay? You get pulled over, you do all the normal stuff, okay? 9-year-old me is in the back seat, okay? That was awesome, but I'll just say for this purpose. 9-year-old me is in the back seat. Man, no reason why you pulled us over because I got 2 left arms, which, you know, yeah, you'd want to see that, wouldn't you? It'd be kind of creepy if you both on that side, they'd both be hurt. Okay, and he's like, look, I'm just trying to give you this, that, and the other, trying to get you out of there, okay? And then I keep shifting and doing all this other stuff, okay? And I'm starting to fear for my own personal safety of some sort, because as I turn around and I walk out, and I'm, you know, pulled up behind because of the tag, I mean, he's dumb because I'm not driving, but I can very easily shoot out the back window just to do it or whatever, okay? The situation gets ratcheted up to where I have a personal fear, whatever the case might be, okay? Now, I had no reason to do any of this other stuff. I had no reason to even search the car, you didn't consent to it. But then all of a sudden, then something kicks over and say I see something, now I can start pulling everybody out.
Right.
And start asking for IDs and all the other stuff,
I
okay?
understand that.
Then it's search incident to an arrest and the whole 9, okay? So if I just pull somebody over and you have a whole bunch of people in the car, it's my experience, and I'm basing this off of UCMJ because this happened when I was, you know, for the military, and a lot of the stuff blends over into here. When the nation was formed, you had 2 kinds of laws: the regular constitutional law, and you had UCMJ, which is a Uniform Code of Military Justice, Guantanamo Bay stuff. Okay. I can ask for anything. I don't have to get it. Okay? And that's the general rule. If I already had probable cause, not reasonable suspicion, but if I had probable cause to pull you over, which is a higher thing, I know or really, really reasonably suspect, I have a good general idea that, say, you've got an axe murderer in the back seat. Yeah, I can start asking. Okay? If it was just a plain old traffic stop, and hey, can I get everybody's ID? I'm not driving. Get that person. Right? As a general rule. Because guess what? Because here's the other thing. You get arrested, and you go through the process like what she was saying. Why did you ask for all of these? The question is going to be asked to that officer.
Right.
And
Why did you do this?
Like with that juvenile case that I was telling you about, that officer did get grilled by the judge while he was on the stand because of, I mean, everything that he basically did that night was wrong.
Had he been drinking, the officer?
The officer?
Or was
No.
was he off duty?
He was, he might, I think he was on duty but plain clothes
Right.
is what the deal was. And he did, he got grilled, and I don't know what happened after the fact, but, I mean, they will, and what he's saying is that they will have to go through and they have to say, well, why did you do this? You know, what was your reason for this?
Right.
And when it's, you know, in court, it's public information then as to, you know, what happened with that incident. So, and I think that's what, you know, what I was saying earlier, is that we kind of get bogged down in the actual incident, not knowing what the rest of the court process was.
Because I'll tell you this, I tell people all the time, take the arrest. Take the arrest. So many people get caught up and get shot and get all this other stuff because they're trying to prevent getting arrested. Okay, to me, you know, whenever I get this overly aggressive officer, I say one thing that just is kind of douchey, but I say it. But then at the same time, because that guy's trying not to be revealed or whatever, he's just trying to, assert himself. I say, you know what? Just write the ticket, because that's the fastest way for me to find out who you are tomorrow. And they usually leave. Or I say, my other one was like, you married? Why? Because I want this to be the thing that you have to explain to your wife as to why you lost your job.
I wish you were in Southwest Florida. Oh my God.
And my response would be, there's 5 copies, please press hard.
Yeah, no, and I don't, and the thing is, you know, if I'm in the wrong, because on their side, you know, especially with tickets, you don't want to mess with that deal, you got to call us, and then we don't want to mess with it either, because we have to hear you, and it's like, man, I was walking down the street, you know,
Minding my own
business. I was like buying all kinds of Girl Scout cookies, and all of a sudden the Gestapo came through, and they were like doing all these numbers. They beat me up, and I got a ticket for jaywalking.
You had to talk yourself into that.
Right. And she's heard me when I talk to people on the phone. I have no problem telling you that was your fault. I got a call yesterday. This lady, she said, I called in a false DV charge because me and my husband were arguing. And I called the police, and I said that he pushed me. And I said, did he? No, he didn't really push me. So then I had to go back and I say, listen, because in a lot of cases, women will, to try to protect the other person, say, oh no, they try to recant, right? So I said, ma'am, did it really happen? Because I want to believe you first, right? Did it really happen? No, it really, really didn't happen. Okay. So, why are you calling me? Well, because I took off and he left to go wherever, and I tried to call back and they said they were coming anyway, so I didn't want to be there when they got there, so I took off. And I said, all right, this is what I need you to do. Send him a text message. Have you talked to him yet? No. Does he know that the police are coming? No. Send him a text message that says something to the effect of, listen, I'm sorry, but I called the police. I kind of told them that you did this, that, and the other. I said, because here's the thing. When he comes back from the store, the police try to call back and you don't answer anymore. They don't know what the hell happened to you. And you gave them his name and the address. So they're going to show up. And then they're going to ask, hey, sir, are you such? Yes? Okay, well, at least some of this is credible. Where's your wife? I have no idea.
Right.
Ouch.
Right. Now, no one's ever going to say, did you kill that person? Yes, I did. Well, a few people will, but for the most part, they're proud, right? But for the most part, they're going to be like, no. They're expecting you to say no. Really? Huh. Well, we don't know where she's at. I don't know where she's at. So if you have this message that says, listen, I kind of called the police, okay? Now the cop is like, now they can call her because maybe she'll answer the phone. you know, and then he won't, you know, because he's going to get mad and get aggressive because he doesn't know what happened. It's the first time police are coming up out of nowhere. And so, man, the Nazis are coming up and trying to take our jobs and all that stuff, you know. Throw a little South Park in there, right? But he doesn't know. He's going to get mad. He's going to do everything he can do to not get arrested because he thinks that getting arrested is the end of the world. And it ain't. Get arrested. It sucks in there and stinks. But you have a good conversation with that guy that's sobering up, right? It'll be funny, but you know. So just be smart. Just be smart, smart. But call us with the story because we're laughing, I promise you. We are. All of us are. And then we'll still help you, but we're laughing first. Yes?
I have one last question for Captain Martin. As far as education goes, you mentioned how the standard is before they can get in with the police department. And I also heard you here say that you only have one IA a year. Would you say, average, would you say in your opinion, there is that direct correlation of having more competent cops because now they're coming in with a degree, a little more experience versus the few months in the academy?
I think more so than the college degree is the culture that we have there. The college degree makes a better cop. You know, I don't care what anybody says, you know, it really does. It teaches you how to write, teaches you how to read and understand what you're, you know, and it's important. And I would tell any student, probably the most important class you're going to get in school is English. Learn it. Once you master the English language, there's nothing you can't understand. You know?
Except math.
Thank you.
Yeah, but what's math's only for people that put people in outer space, right? Engineers. Engineers.
Yes?
You mentioned earlier an accreditation that your department has as far as bias. Within that, are there any required classes that your officers have to take as far as diversity or understanding minority groups or anything like that?
Yeah, we do. And matter of fact, I just took, the state of Florida has, every 4 years we have to complete 40 hours of training. Now, we usually get way beyond that because we have in-service training and so forth, but there's also online classes through the state of Florida that have to do with profiling. It's legal and safe traffic stops. Lineups is the big one now on how to properly, you know, give a lineup. But yes, to answer your question, that's a requirement.
Are there any other local agencies that are accredited the way that you are?
The Indian River County Sheriff's Department is accredited through the state of Florida and nationally through COLLIER. Indian River.
It's not quite as impressive anymore.
Huh?
It's not quite as impressive anymore.
When you get the number of employees that you have, and you have to understand that I know that the sheriff came in, and one of the things that he and I first talked about was his attempt to change the culture that he inherited. And he's still trying to change some of that culture. And the only way you really get that done is by getting your mid-level supervisors to buy in. They have to be willing to change. And you can't just walk into an agency and fire everybody. Their officers have unbelievable rights within the state of Florida as far as retaining their job. So you have to change the culture. The college degree is very important, but I think the culture is the most important.
And if you ever do come up in a situation where an officer is doing something wrong, would you say that talking to an attorney would be the best way to report that, or would there be other routes you can go?
I think it depends on the agency. Listening to you talk, it's like you'd be talking to the wall. If you ask Michael if it was one of our officers, would he say go to an attorney or go to the police department? He'd probably say go to the police department because they're going to investigate it. I can tell you, we had a guy that called us. I got a third source or third hand, but talked to this guy. He said, "Listen, I was pulled over by one of your cops. I had half a pound of marijuana in the car. He took the marijuana, made me call the guy I got the marijuana from to try and set up another deal." Okay? So he tried to call the guy said, "I don't have it," and all. So I'm like, okay. We go to look, there's no marijuana turned into evidence. So what's the first thing you think that I'm doing? Did I jump right into an IA? Oh, hell no, no. I called the state attorney's office. We did a criminal investigation first because that needs to precede the IA. They couldn't find the doe. The officer came in and lied to the state attorney. So they had no case. So we start our IA. I get confirmation that other people saw him with this big bag of marijuana.
Oh.
The kid freely admits that he smoked dope all the time to help him go to sleep at night. we go to charge, we charge the guy, the officer. The officer comes in for his interview, and fortunately for us, resigns before he interviews with me. Okay? That's, to be honest with you, when we have a bad cop, that's what we want. We want them to resign beforehand. We want it to be their idea. And the reason we want it to be their idea is they can't come back. If we fire them, they can always file and
But
try.
they can go somewhere else.
Yes and no. On this particular officer, I mean, does he still have his ticket? Yes, but I have had officers whose tickets were pulled and they can't work anywhere else. On this particular officer, we sent it up, he resigned during an IA. So anytime that somebody pulls up his information on ATMS, a flag pops up, said this officer resigned during an internal affairs investigation. That should be flag number 1. Now, I tried to pull this officer's ticket, and the state of Florida said no. You know why? Where's your evidence? Where's the dope? Well, I don't know where the dope is. That's why we charged him. If he had turned it in. So, but he's still not a cop. He's not a cop. The most recent ones that we let go, they're not cops either. And I put in there that they resigned in lieu of termination, because that's another thing that you can check on the little checkbox. So instead of firing them, we did allow them to resign, but we still marked that down. So anytime you pull those names up, same thing, boom, flag. Some agencies don't do that. We had the attorneys come in for these officers, and they tried to bargain with us, saying, listen, we'll resign, but just put in there they resigned with no, you know, no issues. And we're like, our chief is like, no, we're not doing that.
And that
But
might
that's
be
our
more
chief.
difficult for them to find a job, but unfortunately, you have too many officers that have issues like that, and just hop to a different.
So you say
hop to
too,
it.
yeah, you say too many officers? One is too many, but the vast majority of police officers are not bad.
I agree.
The
I
vast
agree.
majority.
The issue that I have is that we have a system that protects and perpetuates the bad ones instead of honoring and respecting the good ones.
They have protected, I can tell you that if you're doing an investigation on an officer, they have more protections than a criminal who's being investigated. Before I interview the officer, I have to give him all of my evidence. All of it. Now, I'm okay with that because I know he doesn't know what's in my mind and how I'm going to question him.
Right.
And usually if I believe that they're guilty, and I will tell you the vast majority of these cases, I would say it's run about 50-50, where the officer is not guilty of an offense. Just because there's a complaint doesn't mean they're wrong.
Right.
Sometimes they're exonerated because, yes, they did what the person said they did, but it's allowed by law or policy. And other times it just didn't happen. It's unfounded. You know, you get arrested for DUI and you make up all these stories about the officer, and it turns out none of it's true. So, but it was running about 50-50 for me.
So this is part where I agree with Darren, is like, if I was busted for that weed, oh my God, I'm in prison. So yeah, he lost his job, but I'd be in prison, you'd be in prison, he's not in prison. And then like I was telling you, we got this situation by me, the Punta Gorda cop. I don't know if you heard this one. In a shoot, don't shoot scenario with the rich people, I'm in Retirement City, the cop used a real gun and didn't check to make sure the blanks were in it, and executed her, man. 4 shots, he kept going.
That's
And he's not in jail, he's not in prison, he's been on paid leave for 6 months.
But that's accidental.
But still, I would be in jail, I'd be in
I
prison.
don't agree with it.
But, on my side of the state, if a regular person
I
did
mean,
that.
you'll get sued for negligence.
Yeah.
But
Right.
you'll probably, I mean, you're going to have an affirmative defense for that also.
You run
Right.
over a bicyclist in your car. A
Right.
bicycle runs out in front of you.
No, don't, please don't.
Yeah, but I mean, let's say you do.
Right?
And
You're not going to go to jail for that.
Skateboarder.
I think that
Right.
part of the problem for me too is that we get to this extremist other point of view where the rhetoric and the cop hating, you know, loses the message of, I'm very much more solution driven, like how do we fix these issues? And getting into just that, you know, rhetoric on that end, I think is just as dangerous as.
There's a couple like the sheriff, in New River County Sheriff's Department, Milo Thornton, Captain Milo Thornton. That's where you start. You start with people like that. That's a young officer who's now in a great position of authority, who could sit there and affect change, but it has to be, you have to affect change at middle management. If you can't affect change at middle management and upper management, then you're bound to keep the same culture. I was fortunate when I came in, the guys that I was on a shift with were all great guys, and they didn't want to do anything wrong, but I'm taking it.
No. I was trying to, I appreciate you, officer. I want to call you Captain Coach because he's a soccer coach before he's a...
Well, I was a soccer coach while I was doing it.
But to me,
Yeah.
soccer coach takes precedence. So I appreciate him for answering your daggers and deflecting with the, almost with the Wonder Woman shield. It's like, you guys are suckers. It's like, no, that's that 37 years of Okay, now, along with that, he is the one side that you can vent different frustrations. I'm gonna have Mr. Marsh come up here and talk about the other way that you can go in and get things handled when you have a rights issue.
So good afternoon. So I'm gonna try to make this fun real quick. So first and foremost, I reached out to Vero Beach Police Department. Let me explain this. I'm one of the most critical of law enforcement. I'm nowhere near anti-law enforcement, contrary to some other popular beliefs. I'm anti-corruption. Why did I reach out to this particular agency is very simple. When you heard about this stop that he mentioned, I was pissed. Point blank period. I was like, you know what? I know why we were stopped. I was a white man hanging out with some black guys, wearing a Cadillac with 20-inch rims, going to internal affairs. It never made its way to internal affairs. Why? Because I was able to build a relationship with the captain as well as the chief, and it was, you know what? There was no excuse given to me. Because as soon as you get an excuse, it's, you know what? You're going to take their side, you work for say, I didn't get that from the Vero Beach Police Department. So I said to myself, well, this is kind of weird because when I deal with this other agency here, it's always, no one wants to talk to me. And time after time, that's the problem with the culture that we have now, is there is no trust with law enforcement. You know, for example, maybe you have certain evidence, who are you going to go to? Mm-hmm. Over the years, I've built up a rapport with this particular agency. I even helped one of theirs when they ran for sheriff, Mr. Anti-Law Enforcement here. You know, why did I do that? Because I said, you know what? Every time I go to this agency, and there's been their own inner policies I didn't even know. They had a policy where I said, you know, when the dash camera on, is it supposed to have audio and video? And I'm speaking to this particular corporal, and he says to me, Mike, you got us. That's our policy. Here's the policy. And I'm like, hell, they even provided me the policy? And I'm like, that's what it's about. Because now, you know, the next time maybe I have a complaint, I don't need to write it down. I can say, hey, you know what, Captain Martin, this is what happened to me. What do you think? Is this something that should have happened, shouldn't have happened to me? Yeah, you know what, Mike? Here's the policy. Take a look at it. To this present day, that particular incident never made its way to internal affairs. I was given the option from the chief as well as the captain, Mike, what do you want to do here? I just want to know what was done wrong here, because you know what? They have a tough job. You couldn't pay me any amount of money to do what they do, okay? I don't need to go on a ride along to understand that it's very difficult. You know, but at the same time, it's about how they communicate with us. One of the things the captain mentioned, he was up here on a traffic stop. Hey, I'm Captain so-and-so, this is being recorded. That's professionalism. That is interpersonal skills. You got to have that from cops. It can't be every time you see them, it's a bad thing. Someone's going to haul off to jail. You know, you got to see them more than twice a year. And here's a book bag, here's a bicycle. Good seeing you guys. They have to be in the community. And when he was mentioning with a captain now, Danny River County Sheriff's Office, you know, when you were saying about culture, it's very important. A lot of times when I talk, I say, you know what? You can't have little Timmy in the neighborhood with Tyrone. And if he doesn't understand Tyrone's culture, it's never going to work. We need to bring back the community-oriented policing.
Is Tyrone British?
No, he was black in my scenario.
Oh.
But he could be a British black.
It's a British name.
Good point.
But my point is, we kind of ran away from the days of, you know, when they were in the community on bikes. You know, now, one of the problems I see is, you see this number right here. You see two cops in the area and you're saying to yourself, what's going on here? Are they writing a report? That's the problem. They need to be more interactive with the community. So getting back for a minute, one of the things that you touched on is, how do you build that relationship? For example, we have one agency that I don't get along with in Indian River County. And why is that? Because it's not about, hey, I want to get this particular deputy in trouble. I want to be listened to. I want someone to explain to me, you know what, Mike? You could record a cop. You know? Oh, I can? I expect, and you should expect, a reasonable expectation of law enforcement of a certain level of competency. Now, while Captain Martin was up here, he may not know the answer to every question. He didn't go to law school. You know, that he is here to enforce the law. So a lot of times we're so critical on cops. And trust me, I'm one of the most critical. So. But they don't know everything. And as far as like the stops go, if you ever look at the book that they have, you know, so they're not going to know everything. But we do expect them to know just the bare minimum, you know. I want to go back real quick. So Malika introduced me. I'm what they call an activist. I'm sure many of you have heard that term. Now you would think an activist and a captain, it's two ends of the spectrum. It's really not. We both have the same commonality of we want everyone to be treated fairly. A good cop has that same theory. But there's good and bad in everything. What I do, I can't do what I do if I didn't have a relationship with law enforcement, with attorneys. Just to give you a little background, I've seen jail a couple times. I don't condone it, but I like to think that I have a good enough understanding of what rights I do have. One of the biggest incidents that I was involved with that landed me in breaking news was Corey Jones, who's a good friend of mine, down in Palm Beach County. Corey Jones was shot and killed by a plainclothes officer. Now, the officer is facing attempted murder as well as manslaughter. And not to toot my own horn and others, when we started rallying, it took 7 months, but a grand jury finally came back with an indictment. What we went to jail for is, and we were talking about don't go to the judge's house, don't go to the state attorney's house either. They kind of frowned upon in Palm Beach County. What we did was, we set up a protest to go to the front door of the state attorney's house. We felt that for 7 months, it was a travesty of justice to wait for this case for an arrest to be made. You know, like you said, if it was one of us, what would have happened? We probably would have been in jail that same day. Unfortunately, sometimes the badges grant extra rights, and it shouldn't. It really should not. And I would like to say there's many of law enforcement that agrees. But unfortunately, until that blue line gets a little thinner, they can't do what I do. I would love at these rallies to have more law enforcement present. Because I could say with a certainty, there's many officers to this day like, man, that Corey Jones case, that was a bad shoot. But you know what? When will the time come that they stand side by side? And I think that's what it's about. And that's what I think my main goal of activism is. They're not the enemy. They shouldn't be the enemy. But time after time, they get looked to be the enemy. So in the Corey Jones case, we went there to protest, and there was a little railroad track. And let me give a disclaimer that never walk across train tracks because it's kind of a misdemeanor in the state of Florida. Yeah. Now, there was no signs. Anyway, I beat the case, but let me get back to why it's important to have the connection with law enforcement attorneys. So we did this protest. We walked across this one little area. They said there was train tracks. We stepped over it. We all got thrown on the ground, hog-tied, taken off to jail. But you never hear such a thing over a protest. But it was the message and the fact that we wanted a cop to go to jail, in my own opinion. So we all went to jail. And for what? For walking across a train track, a ticketable offense. Now, during this course of time, there was an attorney who did what they call pro bono work, kind of like what these two attorneys are here, not exactly, but I look at it the same way. They're not getting paid to be here. They're educating you. This attorney said, you know what, I'm going to take your case because I believe in what happened against Corey Jones was not right, and you're sticking up for Corey. Took my case got dismissed. My point is, if I didn't have this relationship in the community, you know, it's not all about, when I hear people F the police, I think that's the dumbest thing. Is it protected? Sure it is. But what are you going to do, call a crackhead when your house gets broken into? You know, there has to be a level of respect. What I'm saying with that is, it may be in some cases, if you're in River County, you may call it cracking. But
I've got family members, I mean.
But my point is this. You know, a lot of times I do protests. If it's a police department I have a good relationship with, I'll call up first. Do I have to? No. Here's what we have a right to. We have a right to peaceful assembly. That goes out the window at times. People forget that. You know, I can't go start looting a community and I'm like, but we matter. It doesn't quite work like that. I can peacefully demonstrate. So what will I do? I'll call an agency and say, hey, I'm going to do this, because now they already know, hey, he's coming, this is what we can expect.
Why did you call him though?
Well, in Palm Beach County, the reason why I called him, after my first arrest, I wanted to make sure there was no train tracks. I didn't want to go back to jail. In Palm Beach, it's not that great of a jail. But my point is, the reason why I did is because in Palm Beach, they actually said, okay, when are you going to come protest? We have a parking lot for all your demonstrators to park at. What time you want to do it? Let's do it 1 to 3. This way we can be there, everyone's safe. I did it because from a safety standpoint, now that they already knew, and you know what? Every time I protest in Palm Beach, I'm sure they're not a fan favorite of me, but it goes out without a hitch. And actually they came out to one of the protests. My point is, there has to be a relationship.
You know, is it legal to do that? For them to make that requirement or even suggestion?
Now, they couldn't. No, they couldn't. They couldn't force me and tell me. If it's a public area, I could protest. I don't need any permit whatsoever. My constitutional right allows me to peacefully protest. However, is it a good idea? Yes, I think it is, because where are you going to park when you want to go protest a union president?
No, my question was, can they put any kind of restriction on it?
Yeah, if it's certain protected spaces like a courthouse or certain areas, there is a reasonable level of restrictions that they could. I mean, not only do we have constitutional rights, there's also local county ordinance. For example, in Palm Beach County, the courthouse is deemed to be a protected area, which means I can't protest there. There is no real permit unless I'm on the sidewalk that I could be at. So there are these protected areas. And I would say the biggest thing is, if you don't know, ask an attorney.
So I just want to give an example.
She knew where I was going with
So,
it.
Malik mentioned earlier, time, space, manner. Those are restrictions on free speech. So what happens when this comes up usually is when a county or municipality passes an ordinance that restricts time, place, and manner of speech. And so let's say that a place says that you, I don't know, you make up the story.
What's the place?
So let's just say that they passed an ordinance that said you can stand in this area from like 8 a.m. to 3 p.m., you know, Monday through Friday, and you can't talk about
Killing cats.
yeah. So you have a group that says, you know what, I do want to go out to this place at, you know, 12 o'clock in the afternoon, and I want to talk about killing cats, and I should be able to do this, and so I'm going to. So you go out and you protest, and then you're arrested because there's an ordinance that says that you can't.
Now, first and foremost, going with that, by drafting that ordinance, which in and of itself restricts time, place, and manner, which in this particular case is time and place. Okay, the manner is like you can't have like torches and stuff like that, right? But
Can't torch a cat.
right. Okay, but the time, they have a timer, and usually the time is set up because there's business going on. The place is where the business is going on. But does that mean that you cannot do the protest in and of itself? No. You just have to do it on the other sides of the time. Now, there might be another like a curfew ordinance later that says, that might, you know, that might conflict.
That, though, is when, like, if you went out there at noon, you know, with your group and you did your protest and you were arrested, that's when the constitutional challenge of that ordinance comes into play.
Right.
And that's when, you know, you take your case, you know, you challenge that ordinance and say, well, I believe that this did violate my right to free speech because I should be able to be out there at noon on a Thursday protesting this particular issue. And they said that I couldn't. That's when the case comes into play, and that's when you challenge that, you know, you should be able to be there because you have a right to speech.
So, two last things, because we bored him to sleep, and I see some of you getting restless. So, one quick thing is I want to mention, and a lot of you have heard this emerging technology, body cams.
Mm-hmm.
So we talk about transparency within the police departments, the sheriff's office. One of the biggest things I do is, and this is kind of how me and Captain and the chief in the Bureau Beach Police Department we spoke on, is body cameras. You know, in this day and age, in my opinion, if we let law enforcement play judge, jury, and executioner, so to speak, I want to see what's happening. I want that transparency. I want the accountability, and I want the accessibility. As an activist, that's big for me. I think part of the problem we see in this day is you have some sheriffs, some chiefs that feel this is an expense that's really not warranted right now. In my view, it just doesn't protect us, the citizens. It protects the law enforcement officer. Think about this for a second. What if one of them was facing a murder charge right now, and that body camera can exonerate them? So it's not just for us, but it's something that we all need to rally for. You know, this is one of the biggest things that I do, and without boring you with House bills and everything, right now it's with the legislature to try to mandate body cameras. It is a very expensive thing. To give you an idea, in Palm Beach Gardens, where Corey Jones lost his life, they went to body cameras, $200,000 to outfit over 100 officers with 2 cameras. In my eyes, it doesn't make sense to buy them. I think leasing them is a much better option because of technology. You know, what's right now, emerging technology is obsolete in a year from now. But I think that, in my opinion, that will rebuild the relationship between law enforcement. Because let's face it, anyone with a camera in front of them is a lot better, a little nicer. You know, there's a little more checks and balances.
Well, and that's been proven anyway. They're
Yep.
one of the first agencies in California that started using cameras, both, you know, incidences and, you know, against police officers and civilians dropped dramatically. So it has been proven that it does work.
And I'm sure even with the number of internal affairs, you know, it's going to lessen that number as well. The last thing, and it's a shame he's not up because I really want to target the youngest person in the room, but what's the age group with you guys?
19?
You're 16? Like you're 25.
Not 16.
Jesus.
Yeah.
26,
Wow.
Yeah,
I can't do the math.
Maybe it's the glasses.
Yeah.
And when, you too? 16? 17? Jeez. Okay, you're like, what, 18, right, ma'am? I want to give this last kind of little personal touch real fast. You know, I know today is all about, you know, lowering social justice, and I think it ties in because it has to do with the system in itself. I'm sure if I asked you the question right now, do you know what withhold adjudication means, if I use that term to you? Have any idea what that means? No, 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 no.
No.
Okay.
That's
That's why I'm about to make my point.
That's why they call mom.
Yeah. So basically, giving you a quick little synopsis of what that means is, say you commit a crime, and now you're in the sentencing phase. You could, with adjudication, be withheld or not withheld. Let's say it's a felony. So for whatever reason, you're in a college dorm, you took someone's laptop. As long as it's over $300 in the state of Florida, it's a third-degree felony, punishable up to 5 years Florida State Prison. It's a felony. All of a sudden, you get this overzealous prosecutor that said, you know what? I'm going to give Brian 6 months of probation, as long as he's adjudicated guilty. Now you're 18 years old, your whole life ahead of you. And you have no idea because you don't even know what to be adjudicated even means. So you're saying that you're 6 months probation, that's nothing. It's over. Sign on the dotted line. You know what happens when you walk out that courtroom? You now at the age of 18 are what is called a convicted felon. What does that mean? It means you're not going to vote for a long time. It means you're not going to have the right to a firearm for a very long time. You're not going to hold most positions. And here's the argument, but we can get our rights back. Do research on what clemency is in the state of Florida, just to give you an idea. Commit a crime at the age of 18. You have to wait 7 years for restoration of your civil rights. So that makes you how old? You're 25 now. Now you want to own a firearm. It's 8 years from the conviction date. Now you're 26.
Or move to Ocala.
Or that. Or now you want a full pardon. You want the state of Florida to recognize that your charges, you're fully excused from that. 10 years from the date of sentencing. So what do? You live under a rock, work at 7-Eleven for the next 10 years of your life? So I want you to understand, the first offense, could it happen? Probably not. But it strongly could happen. And so you need to take these ages right now very, very seriously. The things I do, knock on wood, I can only catch a misdemeanor to a certain extent. But what you do today will affect you greatly and maybe gravely in the years coming. So think about that, because you won't learn that in school. No one's going to come in and say to you, if you get adjudicated guilty, you're a convicted felon. And let me tell you, things have changed from maybe 10 years ago. You're not doing much as a convicted felon, period. Unfortunately, we're a throwaway society. You know, the prisons aren't here to rehabilitate you. As much as you may hear that, it sounds great. It does not happen. That's why you see the bright letters on my shirt, Team Success. One of the things I want to do in the future is I want to have these people given a second chance. I want to find felon-friendly employment. I know that sounds crazy, because why do I want to do this for these horrible felons? If we don't do it, what type of society will we have? Okay, if we just start throwing away people, because we are a throwaway society, that is not the answer. So, in a nutshell, I just wanted to explain to you that whole adjudication thing. We bored them in tears and sleep. Yes?
One last thing before we go. I am part of a organizing activism group in Port St. Lucie, and I also lead a transgender activism page. For activists, how do you recommend beginning to build that relationship with local police?
Well, that's a great question. First and foremost, I will tell you, because I'm just going to be honest and blunt with you, not everyone is going to be as personable as this captain in the back room, okay? Without me totally going on my rant of the sheriff's office where I live, you have to build relationships. The best thing is they have a public relations officer, a community information, what do you guys call it over there?
Well, we have a PIO, Community Relations
Oh,
Officer.
yeah, okay.
The chief of police in Port St. Lucie is on the board of Children's Home Society or whatever. Yeah, I see him like twice or 3 times a month.
What I like to do is, I like to go to the highest. For example, the captain, the chief, and introduce yourself. You have to remember this. Protesting, these things are constitutional fundamental rights that are afforded to us. Now, I'm going to tell you, I've been a target. I've been to jail a couple different times, fraudulently. I have, without going into detail, a case against a certain agency. It takes individuals like this, who they have a passion for their craft, and they're like, you know what? I want to help you. I've called him plenty of times. There's no client relationship here. He went to school for me to say, Malik, is this a crime? Technically, I need to pay, what, $200 an hour? But that doesn't happen, because there's individuals within these agencies and within their own crafts that genuinely have a passion for changing the law. And the reason we're all in the same room is because they all feel the same way. They want to see equality, they want to see justice. But I'm going to tell you, it sounds great. You want rights for transgender? That sounds so cool. You're going to get some of them that are like, what do you want to do? You want to go protest over? Yeah, okay. Just give you a quick little story. 8 years ago, the one negative thing with the police department, and not under their current chief, but I found out there was a sex offender working in a daycare. And I said, oh,
Yeah.
the police department, they're going to love me, because I'm doing, in the state of Florida, back in the Adam Walsh days, which so many of you guys are way too young to even know who Adam Walsh is, he was killed. And it kind of strengthened the sex offender laws. The sex offender registry came about pretty much during this time era, which meant that if you were convicted of a sexual crime, you were on the sex offender registry. This daycare, the owner's husband was not on the sex offender registry. Why? Because of a thing called ex post facto. Basically, if a law is created today, I can't penalize Malik from what he did yesterday. You can't go back. But I said to myself, how the hell is he working at a daycare? And the way I got tipped off was, I've always been this kind of vocal. So at the daycare, it was my stepkids at the time, they were going there, and I got into an argument with the owner. And I said, you know what, if you're not going to give me back my tuition, I'll have to take you to small claims court. So one of the workers says to me, as much hell as you raise, why don't you see why her husband's even working here? So I was so curious. I'm like, you done told the wrong person that. So I'm calling up buddies. I'm like, look this guy up. Okay, all of a sudden, I get an email sent to me, and I'm looking, and this guy molested his stepdaughter. Without going into great detail, I said to I can't believe this. And at the time, I protested in front of the daycare. What happened was, during that era, there was some officers didn't like what I was doing, which to me was a no-brainer. I wanted the community to know that this guy was a sex offender. I don't care what the statute calls him. He is what he is, and I want him out. And I want all the parents to know. So when I got there, to find black and whites, the police department were like, you must be constantly moving, and like they were explaining the picketing ordinance to me, and I'm like, that don't work for me. So what I did was, I was like, you know what? I'll be back tomorrow. But this time I'm coming with the media. And I'll explain the media real quick. If you want to get into activism, have a little relationship also with the media. They're not always your friend, because in a poem I had wrote, sometimes I just want a 5 and 6 o'clock story to play again. But there is a few of them that genuinely, like these attorneys, they love their craft, and they're just like, investigative report, cool, what's the sheriff doing? Send it to me, Mike. You'll get that, not many of them. But going back to the story, the next day I came, I brought this local news channel, it was a small Vero station. That's what saved me from not going to jail. Because when I got there, I was told by the chief at the time, not this current chief, well, you know, Michael, you're doing this and you're doing that. I said, let me tell you something. I said, this guy's a sex offender, okay? What he did was heinous. Legally, we can only do so much. But I want the community to know. Make a long story short, because I had the news media there, like literally I was like, cool, I'm probably going to jail, just record it, get my good side. They were there, I didn't go to jail. The cops actually, as soon as he started rolling footage, the cops left. You know, and I'm sure I would have went to jail that morning. But my point is, that troubled me, because I would think that a local police department would say, you know what, we don't want this guy working there either. The problem was there was no laws really in place, so they couldn't really do anything. But I was pissed because I'm like, you're gonna get mad at me when I want the community to know? So getting back to your original question, you have to basically scout out people at these agencies that generally love what they do. I would say, without putting words in this captain's mouth, he loves his job at the police department. If not, let me tell you something, I'm not a fan favorite in Indian River County. So the fact that he even emails me, it says a lot, because I'm one of the most critical. But at the same token, I have respect for him, what he does, and he has respect for what I do. So you have to find those individuals. It's not always about, I want to be right. You know, it's about, I just want to be treated fairly. And as an activist, you won't always be treated fairly. But it's great what you're doing from a young age. I wish, I didn't get into this until probably about 7 years ago, you know, because when I was your age, there was only like a law team in school. There is no, what do you mean you want to teach them to know their rights? The schools don't care. Even when you look at the law classes, it's like a retired public defender. I mean, it's individuals that you really don't know law either, you know. But that's the number one thing. You got to build a rapport. It's not us against them, but it's going to feel like it's us against them. Does that kind of answer your question?
Yeah, thank you.
No problem. Any other questions? That's it? Okay. Well, we're gonna have another, he's like, yeah, I'm ready. I'm ready to go. But lastly, once again, I just want to thank the captain from the police department, Malik and Danielle from the Watson & Lay firm. And you know what? This is what it's about, knowing your rights at this age. Because unfortunately, you never know when something that sounds so simple that you might have to actually enforce the fact that you know your rights. All right? Thank you much.
And then for you, real quick though, you're doing an organization at school?
No, I'm not in school, I'm trying to get to IRC.
Okay.
There's an organization led by women in Port St. Lucie as far as like democratic organizing for protests and political organizing, knowing
Okay.
who's coming into office.
Yeah.
And then I also run a transgender activism page on Facebook that it just hit
Okay.
over 1,000 people.
Sure.
With my wife,
Wow.
so it's just personal.
No, it's not. But the laws or rights or issues that you're trying to make sure that you don't run afoul of are what?
We focus predominantly, again, transgender organizing, so predominantly on gender rights, making sure that trans students' rights are protected.
Okay.
Also trying to enact legislation that can lower violence against transgender people. I believe it was 2 weeks ago that 4 trans women were killed in 1 week around the country. And
Okay.
rates are rising, especially.
Sure.
since the election.
But let me stop you there though, okay? And this is just, I want you to, one of the things that, like when I was in my classes and stuff like that, and then just generally, I want you to think a little differently. Most of the stuff that you're talking about trying to do, and I touched on it when I was talking about racism a little while ago, they're not necessarily as black and white, okay? It is against the law to murder. It's not against the law to kill people, okay? It's homicide, that's just a term. It's against the law to murder people, right? Cannot murder people. Now, that being said, there's been laws since the first one was passed in Pennsylvania, right? The place where the first murder statute was done. But people still get murdered, right? So, as you're trying to form your group and harvest it and all the other stuff, understand, and I'm just being realistic, there is no law that you can pass to stop a person from behaving a certain way. You can only enact punishments and maybe elevate the punishments. Because people have to evolve away from, you have to be a little bit more accepting. You have to be this, you have to be that. And when you're in, you got to realize, the United States is the 3rd largest populated country in the world, okay? And, my pops was in the military, he did surveillance, he did JSOC stuff, okay? So I know a lot more things that I shouldn't, but I will say this, more so probably than a lot of the places that this country fights and or attacks, we're just as, if not more, zealots for one reason or another. It's just weird, it's POV, we're going that way, we're looking out. And everybody else is crazy, but not us, right? And I look at it a little bit differently because I grew up half my life out of the country and half here, so I look at it from a third person perspective, and that's why I argue all the time. You don't know what you look like. But just understand that, there's an in my personal opinion, okay? There's an empowering or an empowerment type of movement that I think you should do first. You can get people to enact laws and you get people to accept. And you're going to have that group of people that are always going to accept. You're going to have that group of people that would have hidden, Anne Frank. But guess what? She was still caught. Not by the people that were looking for her, but by her neighbors. See what I'm saying? So, you're operating as a minority for an even smaller minority in a field, you're trying to grow potatoes in a field full of ratweed, okay? And so, I think as you, probably look at things a little bit more micro, don't look at it in terms of laws in the general nation or whatever, because it's not going to happen. You can pass whatever you want. The guy in Wyoming is never going to hear about it, He's just out there, he's still mad because he can only shoot one buck with his rocket launcher, right? But maybe go to the school, okay, and you find out specifically what does the school have in place, and then you go to the next school, then you go to the next school, and you go to the next school, okay? If you're in an area where there's a lot more trans people than, say, Wyoming or Idaho, okay, then you deal in that smaller micro area, and you deal with that stuff first. It might take a gazillion years to change the mind of the guy in Wyoming. It's probably never going to happen anyway, right? Because you're not there, but you are over here. So I would focus on that stuff, okay? Create safe places, and then you deal with the laws that deal with the safe place, okay? You can't come over here and do a certain whatever if you're in this geographic area. And then once you've established that and people respect that geographic area, oh, now I've just turned my place into Anne Frank's attic. See what I'm saying? And everybody might know that you're still going over there, but it's mind. So if I step over there, my foot gets blown off, right? So I don't want to go over there. So I would say do that first and deal, you know, there's a lot of ways to back your way or sideways your way into, you know, what it is that you're trying to do or what you want.
And I would, to add to that, and also what Mike was saying, I don't know how far into things you've gotten, but, and this is just what I've learned from what we've been doing, it's a lot of making connections, what he was saying was making connections with police departments, also making connections with other like-minded organizations that are already out there. And they might not have the exact same issue that you are dealing with, but they might be sympathetic to your issue. And that's where I would start also, because what he's saying is, you know, you kind of need to start building in your physical area, geographical area, and expand, you know, beyond there. So that's what one of the things that I would say is, if you have other organizations that you know of, maybe start with them, see what they're doing, maybe start, you know, doing some things alongside of them. Okay.
That's it?